Morning, this is Brian. Today is Wednesday, March 26, 2025, and I'm here in Cleveland National Forest on Palomar Mountain over in the Observatory Campground. So I'm here, second time I've been in this campground, and like last time I kind of want to poke around and check out the flora here because there's a lot to see and hopefully some fauna. So I'm here along one of the back corners of the campground, and this is a stunningly beautiful campground. Absolutely amazing. We're here at about 4,850 feet above sea level, and we're not that far from another campground called the Fry Creek Campground. I've done videos in the Fry Creek before, and I have done one video here in Observatory Campground back in 2020, but I'm back here again. So I want to show you some of the magnificent trees that we got growing here. So one of the most notable trees are these incense cedars right here, Calocedrus decurrens. There are a lot of younger and moderate aged incense cedars just growing all in this campground. One of our main forest trees here in the Palomar range is the incense cedar, especially in the southern, central, and western part of the Palomars, where it's wetter, where we have a lot higher concentration of incense cedars. And these trees are not pines, and they're not related to pines. They are conifers, like pines. They are conifers. In other words, their seeds are borne in cones. And as you can see here, that three-pronged thing sticking out right there, that's an incense cedar cone. Doesn't look like your typical pine cone. In fact, incense cedar is a cypress family tree. It's the cypress family, Cupressaceae. And their foliage is scale-like and flattened. Beautiful incense cedars. It's just one of many species of shrubs and trees that don this area and give it such a beautiful, beautiful vibe. So, oh, would that I have been able to come here years ago, because I would have witnessed this formerly monster incense cedar tree. This is probably one of the largest ones here in Palomar at one point. Just the width is several feet across. This was a massive incense cedar. This was an absolute monster back in the day. This thing was probably close to 200 feet tall. And you can see parts of the log that still persist here. There's a piece of it there, and more of it down in this gully. So yeah, incense cedar can get quite large. Even here in Southern California where it's drier than it is up north. But yeah, we get some big incense cedars here. I've seen a few. Seen some in the Angeles National Forest, seen a few pretty big ones here in Palomar, and I've seen some in the San Gabriel Mountains, especially in the Buckhorn Campground has some huge incense cedars there as well. But yeah, so we're walking along, I guess that's picnic table 10, so this must be site number 10. I'm just exploring and enjoying the beautiful vibe here. So, incense cedar is just one species of conifer of quite a few that grow here. It's one of the most prolific in Palomar because it reproduces extremely easily and very, very voraciously. And I'll show you what I mean by voracious reproduction. Some spots where you go, there's almost a lawn, almost a literal lawn of incense cedar seedlings and saplings. All these, with a couple of minor exceptions, are incense cedar seedlings and saplings. All incense cedar. Except that little guy, which is actually a big cone Douglas fir. But yes, Yes. And when these things sprout in mass like they often do, they can form basically impenetrable thickets. I would hate to try to bushwhack through that. Plus, there's probably poison oak in there. But I would hate to try to bushwhack through that. That would be really difficult. But yes, incense cedar, especially in areas that have been suppressed from fire for a long time, tend to favor incense cedars becoming the dominant forest tree. And here at Palomar, white fir, which I'll talk about and show you in a moment, also very, very rampant as well in parts of Palomar. All right, so let's go ahead and go to another spot. Well, I'll show you a younger white fir here. Hopefully I can find a couple larger ones. Right here. It's another tree that could be very voracious. It could be a very voracious reproducer. It's not as prevalent in this specific spot, but white fir can be, in parts of Palomar, a humongous fat fraction of the forest. And it's very common and downright abundant in a lot of parts of here in the Palomar area. And they get much larger than this too. Beautiful white fir. Yes, indeed. Yep. This is our Christmas tree. Only me, I'd rather plant a Christmas tree than put a cut off one in my living room. I'd rather grow it. Allow it to have a future. That's just me though. So I'll be probably showing you some more white fir when I come across it, but now for a non-coniferous plant, we've got chaparral whitethorn. Pretty common chaparral species, but sometimes also growing here in the woodlands as well. Ceanothus leucodermis. And I suspect that in about a month or so, these will be blooming, and they will be spicing up the area with a beautiful, beautiful array of blue wands of flower clusters. So yes, beautiful Ceanothus leucodermis. Well, we do have a lot more conifer action here too. So I will be pointing those out, and a lot more broadleaf action as well. What a beautiful campground this is. One small shrub to monster tree, depending on where it's growing. One tree you will see a lot. The canyon live oak, Quercus chrysolepis. Yes, indeed. Extremely common tree here. One of the most abundant non-coniferous trees here in Palomar, and in Southern California's mountains for that matter. Anywhere from 2,000 feet up to a small thicket forming shrub at 8,000 plus, up to maybe even 9,000 feet, is the venerable canyon live oak. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful tree. It can be a really tiny shrub, or it could be an absolutely massive tree, one of the largest species of oaks in the entire world. It could be one of the smallest oaks in the world in dry, high elevation exposed areas, or it could be one of the biggest oaks in the world in deep canyons where the trunks, we have to form a humongous chain of people just to reach around the trunk. Okay. Another thing about Palomar Mountain, the California black oak, Quercus kellogii. Here's a young one right here. Here's a young Quercus kellogii. And here's a more aged specimen, not very old. I can still see last year's acorn cups all in the trees. I can still see last year's acorn cups. And it's still kind of early in the spring for them to be leafing out, at least up here. Further down you go towards the base of the mountain, they're already budding out. But up here above, getting closer to 5,000 feet, they're still pretty leafless right now. You can see here, but again, today's March 26th, so it won't be that much longer. I think especially with the warm second half of winter and the warm stretch we've had at the end of March, I wouldn't be surprised if these things will be leafing out soon too. But yes, this is another tree that can get very large here in Palomar. Usually these are small to medium-sized trees here, but they especially here at Palomar, I've seen these things get massive. And he's also seen some massive California black oaks at Cuyamaca Rancho State Park too, which is in central San Diego County. We're in far northern San Diego County. Yeah, we're a little over an hour's drive from the city of San Diego, and look at the scenery here. This is not what a lot of people think of when they think of San Diego or San Diego County. Incense cedars, white firs, pines, and oaks. But no, yep, this is the same county where San Diego is a big thriving metropolis. And speaking of incense cedars from earlier, this one's a pretty decent one. This one's got some girth to it. It's probably just a little over 100 feet tall, but it definitely has a little girth to it. That's quite a... Yeah, this one's got some girth to it. Let's go over, make sure I don't hit any poison oak, because that we're below 5,500 feet in elevation. That's definitely something to watch out and try to avoid. So yeah, this got a little decent girth to it. Beautiful incense cedar, I'll tell you. You can see all the acorn woodpecker holes and little tiny little acorns from the black oaks that are stuffed in there. But yeah, so these are granary trees here. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful incense cedars. And again, look at all the thickets of saplings. Yes, indeed. Actually, I gotta go, when I go home, I gotta go get the incense cedar seeds I have in my refrigerator. So I got some incense cedar seeds, and they're starting to sprout roots, and I still haven't done anything getting them in the ground, so I need to get home and get on it. I have incense cedar seeds that are sprouting in my refrigerator. Collected the seeds back at the end of October when I was, yeah, back at the end of October. So I need to get them in the dirt. So yeah, what else do we get to look forward to seeing? I'm gonna go hop across this and we'll take a look at some more of the other trees here. Got a Stellar's Jay right there, hopping right in the oak. Ah, it's gone. That was a handsome Stellar's Jay right there. Sanosita stellari. Alright, so we definitely got a lot of other interesting stuff growing here. There'll also be some non-native shrubs and trees to point out pretty soon too. But first, California rose. Right here, Rosa californica. It's all this thorny stuff right here. All those prickles. But yeah, that is native, by the way. That most certainly is native. Now, for non-natives, it's kind of spreading periodically around here at Palomar. Well, that's a native oak right there, but this tree right here, this one that's still leafless and dormant here, the little seed pods hanging from it, it's called black locust, Robinia pseudoacacia. It's a non-native tree that grows in the central and eastern United States, North America, and has been planted here for a long time and is naturalized. And those things are the seed pods still, last year's seed pods hanging from the trees. So that's Robinia pseudoacacia, the black locust. look at that forest. Absolutely stunning. Yeah, this one campground's got some little meadows in it. Pretty neat. Pretty neat to see all this. And some more beautiful black oaks. Again, these haven't started budding out yet, so with time, it'll happen. And these trees will leaf out. Yeah. Let's go take a look at some of the other botany in this area. Okay. One shrub that's very common here in the mountains of Southern California, and seems to get quite large size here at Palomar. This is an example of the large size, but this is hoary coffeeberry, Frangula californica, subspecies tomentella. Very common in the mountains of Southern California. This is one that is very large. So this is a coffeeberry right here. This one's almost the size of a tree. And it's very common here in the Palomar area. Also very common at Cuyamaca and the Laguna Mountains here in San Diego County. And in Southern California for that matter. That is the bark. That is the bark, and those are the trunks. This is one of the largest, some of the largest ones I've ever seen are here at Palomar. One thing you'll notice about Palomar is the supersize effect. Being here in San Diego County, you would think everything would be dry and desert-like, but no. There's the contradiction to that argument right there. Look at that lush forest over there. And some of the trees here in the Palomar area are absolutely humongous. Yeah. Let's go see what's over here. While I'm pointing, looking for more botany. Looks like there's a little amphitheater over here. A little thing here for, probably for lectures or something. Where did I see it? Okay, well, you do have some pines here too, some actual pines. And the ones in this area are basically all coulter pines in this general vicinity. And that's Pinus coulteri. That there and that. And normally they're more medium-sized, sometimes small trees. But in some areas here, see, this is pretty typical size for a coulter pine. But some areas here at Palomar, the coulter pines get absolutely enormous. The size of some moderate-sized ponderosa and Jeffrey pines. And yeah, coulter pines are very common in this spot right here. Now, other parts of Palomar have ponderosa, and there's even a spot above Fry Creek Campground that has a small grove of Jeffrey pines. But coulter pines, you'll know a coulter pine when you see the absolutely humongous, sharp claw-scaled cones of that tree. And of course, when I come over here, I think I see one on the ground, so I could show you. Coulter pine is the only true pine in this area, but it's not the only pine family tree growing here either, though. This massive thing, that's not even a whole cone. That's only about 2/3 of a cone. And those sharp claws at the end, those are heavy. Here's your coulter pine. There's the generally dark brown furrowed bark, which on much larger trees can sometimes plate out like a ponderosa or a Jeffrey pine. Yes, indeed. I'm going to go head up this way. There's another species of conifer, a pine family tree. Now, I talked about white fir earlier. White fir is another pine family tree, but another pine family tree I'll be getting up to momentarily. Okay, here's another pine family tree. This is called big cone Douglas fir, Pseudotsuga macrocarpa. Very common in Palomar. Very common. Some people might mistaken it for the white fir that grows here, but the white fir has a grayish bluer cast, whereas big cone Douglas fir has a rich, shinier medium green. Yep, Pseudotsuga macrocarpa. This is the Southern California endemic cousin of the Pacific Douglas fir, Pseudotsuga menziesii variety menziesii, and the Rocky Mountain Pseudotsuga menziesii variety glauca. I would say it probably looks closer to what glauca looks like, because glauca is a much smaller variant of regular Douglas fir, but usually even they get a little bit larger than these. Big cone Douglas firs are typically medium-sized trees, but here at Palomar, they can get large. These ones are more moderate-sized trees. And why they're called big cone Douglas firs is because their cones are much larger than your Pacific and Rocky Mountain Douglas firs, which are usually only maybe about half, maybe 2/3 the length of this. Much larger cone than on the Pacific and Rocky Mountain Douglas firs. But yes, there are much larger big cone Douglas firs growing here in the Palomars. These ones are just younger ones here. These are younger big cone Douglas firs. When they get larger, taller, and older, their branches are all sprawled out, all crazy. In fact, I'm going to zoom in. That tree in the middle, that tree off in the distance there with the open branching structure, that's a mature big cone Douglas fir right there in the center. That's what they look like when they're more mature. That's more typical of them. So yes, very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting out here. All right, get some more pictures and then I'll look for some other stuff in the area. All right, so there's some larger coulter pines right there. Some larger ones, some taller ones at least. Yeah, this is some of the coulter pines in this area are massive. These ones are maybe a little bit taller than usual, but wait till you see some of the ones along the highway. Some of those are just absolutely gargantuan. So, I was telling you about canyon live oaks being variable sizes. This is a younger canyon live oak, and you see it kind of has a shrubby architecture. Multi-stemmed, which is pretty common for canyon live oak. It's not always the case, but quite often is. Got a big root burl down there where they can sprout after being damaged. But here we are at the base of a pretty decent sized canyon live oak. Here in the Palomars, they can get even much larger than this, but this is a pretty big canyon live oak, actually. This is a pretty big one. It's a little bit bigger than I thought it was from the other side. This is an example of how large some of them can get. Again, at high elevations and extremely dry spots, these things can be small shrubs. But this one's a pretty large tree. But I've seen them much larger than this. Now, girth-wise, this is pretty decent. But if you go along Lower Dome Valley, from the Dome Valley Nature Trail and the French Valley Trail, if you do that hike from Dome Valley and Palomar Mountain State Park, you'll see canyon live oaks that are even much larger than this. But yeah, this is an example of I'm going to call it the Palomar effect, or the supersize effect. Trees at Palomar can get very large. Much more average rainfall and a decent amount of winter snowfall compared to the rest of Southern California. Between 30, I think some areas is between 30, at least 30 inches of rain. Some areas maybe quite a bit more, which is pretty good for Southern California standards, to be honest with you. But yeah, I've seen them get much taller than this too. Again, canyon live oak can be one of the smallest species of oaks, or it can be one of the largest species of oak in the entire world. And there we go, we're talking about some taller coulter pines. There's a pretty tall coulter pine right there. And then a lot of these taller trees here in the background are all more mature big cone Douglas firs with a sparse, spread out branching patterns. Very beautiful trees. Another reason why I love coming here, because big cone Douglas fir reaches its southern extent here in San Diego County, but yeah, once you get south of, I believe, Vulcan Mountain, you don't really see them anymore, which is just in the Julian area. But yeah, let's go take a walk through this. Just look at that, just wall of conifers. I love it. Just love that vibe. But I will be checking out some other spots in the campground before heading out, so I can show you some more interesting botany. All right, time for some pictures. As I was mentioning, the coulter pines, these are a little more typical. Shorter, squatter, broader crowned. It's amazing how big some of them can get here. So we're gonna go pass under this colonnade of trees. One thing to be very mindful of in this area, don't touch the vines on the trunks of these trees. That there is all still leafless, but still very much crazy poison oak. It's western poison oak. It's all still leafless, hasn't leafed out yet. Probably won't leaf out till sometime in April. Toxicodendron diversilobum. Well, we are starting to already get some flower buds here on the arroyo willows. This is Salix lacceolipus. Haven't really started leafing out yet, I don't think, but it's already starting to flower, believe it or not. Alrighty. All right. Here's another handsome young oak right here. Yeah, some of these coulter pines can get pretty decent sized, but some of them in this area are absolutely massive. Ooh, some Stellar's jays. Handsome birds. They're all over the place. Don't touch any of this either. This is the shrub form of western poison oak. All of this, the shrub form. Don't touch any of that either. It's all over the place here. I remember this coulter pine. First time I was here. Pretty typical height. It's a pretty typical height for a coulter. Medium sized. But look how girthy this one is. This is a pretty girthy tree. This is a girthy coulter pine right here. Very girthy one. Very girthy. Very girthy tree. They get quite girthy here in Palomar. Yeah. A little mountain chickadee. Right there. Poecilla gambelli abbreviatus. Western mountain chickadee. probably the camera probably didn't pick it up very well, unfortunately. Those birds are very flighty. Hard to get pictures and video of them. I got a couple more white furs here. Not extremely common to see them below 5,000 feet here in Southern California. Here at Palomar, that's a different story. For some reason, Palomar is very much part of Southern California, but higher than average rainfall allows them to grow at lower elevations. That's a nice looking tree. Some more large coffee berries here too. Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on to next clip. All right. What else have we got going on over here? Some non-native trees here. What do we got here? First of all, it looks like we have an apple tree. Yeah. A pretty decent sized apple tree too at that. Gosh. Yeah, this is an apple tree right here. Malus pumila. It's a pretty big one too. This is a pretty decent sized apple tree. Yeah. Yeah. That's a nice sized one. There's an old wrinkled apple on the ground. Yeah. Yeah, what a beautiful young, well no, oh young, I'm tripping. It's a young, this is a pretty decently aged tree. This is a pretty decent apple tree. Pretty decently old apple tree. What a beautiful tree. Still kind of early in spring for it to start budding out. These will probably be budding out, flowering, and leafing out a little bit later. But yeah, this is an apple right here. Malus pumila. That's a pretty decent sized apple tree, not gonna lie. And some more non-native stuff. Well, here's one native tree right here. California black oak. No surprise there. But right next to it is the non-native maple. I believe I think we have Freeman and silver maples here. Some of these are Freeman maples, and I think some of them are silver maples. And Freeman maples are a hybrid of red maples, Acer rubrum, and silver maples, Acer saccharinum. And these ones, usually in late winter, way before they leaf out. Way before they leaf out, they'll start blooming. Late winter and early spring. Very early spring, like right now. This one's a female. This is probably a silver maple right here. Acer saccharinum, because I don't know if Freeman maples, I've never seen them get seeds, but you guys know this is a female flower here. That's what's going to form the winged samaras, the winged seeds later on. This is a female flower right here. That's going to form the double winged seed keys called samaras. So that's a female flower. And we got a few of them here. Yeah, this is like a female. Yeah, these are more winged seeds. And the seeds will be developing on these well before the leaves open up. The leaves are not going to open up on these trees for a while, probably. It's actually pretty typical for maple trees. And here's another maple over here. We'll get to this tree in a minute. I want to show you this one here. Let's see. This one's got, so maples, a lot of maples like red maples and silver maples, which are closely related. They're in the same group of maples, the section rubrum. So they're closely related to each other. That's why they can hybridize, and when they hybridize, they form the Freeman maple, either in nature or on purpose. Let's see what kind of flowers we're looking at on this one. Okay, these are the male flowers. Yeah, these are the pollen flowers, so this is a male. So this one is likely pollinating the other one. That's why the other one's probably going to get seeds on it. This is a male. The red maple, their flowers are more reddish than on silver maples. So this one should be Acer saccharinum right here. And like red maple and Freeman maple, they flower in late winter and very early spring, way before the new leaves come out. It's going to be a while before the leaves come out because silver maples can leaf out quite late sometimes. So yeah, this is like a multi-trunked specimen here too. Yeah, right there. That's the bark, the shreddy bark of what you'd expect on Acer saccharinum. Very handsome, very handsome. Usually these are single trunk trees, but here they're grown pretty shrubby, which is kind of interesting actually. But yeah, if this were a red maple, to which silver maple is very closely related, these flowers would be red, not greenish. They got reddish bud scales, but the flowers themselves are greenish as opposed to red, which you'd expect on red maples. Now this here is called sweet gum. This is American sweet gum, Liquid Ambar stericiflua, and this one's budding out already. Yeah, this one's already, the buds are already swelling up pretty fiercely on this one. Sweet gum trees usually leaf out earlier than maples. The leaves are kind of maple-like on sweet gums. They're star-shaped like a maple leaf, but these are not maples and they're not related to maples. Yeah, this is Liquid Ambar stericiflua, the American sweet gum. There's your bark. Yep. So those trees already, leaf buds are already swollen on them. Yeah, usually maples leaf out later than sweet gums. But I'm not surprised they're leafing out even earlier than usual because of the really warm weather we've had, especially as of lately. It's been downright warm for this time of year. So it's forcing everything to open up early. Yeah. Sweet gum buds are usually quite large, but these are already swollen and they're going to be opening up very soon. Yep. So yep, Liquid Ambar stericiflua grown here. This is native to the eastern half of North America, all the way down to, I believe, Guatemala in the higher mountains of Central America. But yeah, here we go again. Beautiful apple tree. I got a few pictures around here too. Alright, so I'm going to try to follow this trail towards Five Creek Campground in S6. I think there's a trail. I think the trail's over here, yes. So I want to finish off my Observatory Campground video by hiking along this trail. If you want to see some of those larger coulter pines from the Observatory Campground area, check out my Oda coulter pines, where I get some of the largest ones in the area. Nice larger canyon live oaks. yeah. What a gorgeous place. Now, are these all Coulter pines here too, or are these Jeffreys? Something different about these ones. These look like these could be Jeffrey pines here, but I'm not sure. I don't see any cones on the ground. All right. There's the Fry Creek Campground just across the road. Two campgrounds close to one another. All right. These look like Jeffrey pines. But I don't see any cones. Gotta look around for some cones. Yeah. Yeah, I think these are Jeffreys here. But we do have some Jeffreys over here. Yeah. These look more like Jeffreys than Coulters. They can be quite similar. Just caught a whiff of the vanilla smell. Just caught a whiff of the vanilla, so that's how I know. Yeah, we got Jeffreys in the area. Just caught a whiff of the vanilla bark scent. But I don't see any cones. But yeah, these appear to be Jeffrey pines here. Sometimes you really have to look at the cones to really tell whether you're looking at the Coulter or Jeffrey pine. But yeah, these are Jeffrey pines here. These are Pinus Jeffrey. Yeah, they do grow here at Palomar. Those over there, those are Coulter pines. These are Coulter pines here too. Most of these. One thing to take a look at are those magnificent big cone Douglas firs right there. Yeah. Those are big cone Douglas firs right there. Those are absolutely stunning trees. But yeah, looks like we do have some Jeffrey pine in the area. Pretty cool. I don't see any large cones in these trees. In fact, I don't see any cones, period. I'm just kind of surprised there are no cones at all in these trees. So I'm kind of shocked. But yeah, the growth habit's much more suggestive of Pinus Jeffrey. They do have similar colored foliage to the Coulter pine, but Jeffrey pines, especially when they're young or if they're in really dense, tall forests, tend to be much more upright and narrow than Coulters. Let's take a look at these. Magnificent big cone Douglas firs right here. In 1 second, the car coming. Here we go. Look at that. Yeah, these are gorgeous. Love big cone Douglas firs. Look how handsome that is. So verdant here. Of course, those big cone Douglas firs, some of them are very precariously on the edge there. So yes, we do have some Jeffrey pines around here, but mostly Coulter pine. That's a Coulter pine right there. I could tell. Yeah, the big cone Douglas firs starting to get their pollen cones, I believe. Wow. Yeah, these are beautiful trees. Beautiful California black oaks, of course. All right. I'm going to take a couple pictures and I'm going to go ahead and end this video momentarily. And I got other videos in the works too. Well, yeah. That was a pretty nice little tour of Observatory Campground. Only this time, last time I did a pretty decent video down there, but that was before my current video format of doing text on the screen and doing all my videos together. Yeah. Oh yeah, I can see the cone. I can see a cone in this Jeffrey pine right here. So yeah, that's most certainly a Jeffrey pine. So we do have them over here too. Cool. So we got Jeffrey pines growing here too. Okay. Pretty cool. Shouldn't be surprised, but I don't think there's as far as I know, as far as my experience has gone, I'm not as commonly seen here as Coulter, in some areas Ponderosa, but yeah, these are Jeffrey pines. So there we go, Pinus Jeffrey, Pinus Coulteri. And that's going to do it for my Observatory Campground video. Hope you enjoyed checking it out with me, see what it looks like in early spring. And thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next episode, the next adventure, next hike.